Windows 3.11 has had its 30th anniversary, so I prepared a programming environment which allows to easily develop GUI C++ applications for old and new systems. It is possible to build and run an application in virtualized Windows 3.11 or Windows 95 with a single mouse click. There is even mouse and network integration between host and guest machine. It's also possible to target modern 64-bit Windows or even macOS and Linux using the same codebase and application design. It's even possible to easily create applications for DOS and run them directly in DOSBox. I automated the installation process so you can just run an installation script, provide files from your own Windows 3.11 and Windows 95 installation disks, and everything, including compilers, frameworks, and emulated operating systems, will install automatically. Before we go further, what does this programming environment consist of? I decided to build everything around CodeBlocks, which is a free and open source IDE. I added some templates suitable for legacy software development and configured required compilers. I also added a way to use DOSBox-X as a debugger, which allows to build and run applications in Windows 3.11, Windows 95 or DOS with a single mouse click. There are a lot of batch scripts and configuration files that take care of everything. Windows installation files are automatically extracted and the directory structure of emulated hard drives is created automatically. For graphical interface development, I use various versions of wxWidgets framework. It is a cross-platform framework, so it is possible to use it with different systems. But currently I am focusing mostly on Windows, and the automatic installer that I prepared works only on Windows at this time. I slightly modified the 2.8.12 version released in 2011, so it can be used with Windows 3.11 applications. I also included the 3.0.5 version from 2020, slightly adapted so it can be used both with Windows 95 and modern Windows. It is even possible to develop Unicode applications for Windows 90X thanks to MSLU and Unicode's library. For modern targets, I also included wxWidgets 3.2. I also used various C++ compilers. I wanted to avoid using ancient proprietary software as much as possible. Windows 95 and newer targets can be built using TDM-GCC 4.7.1, released in 2012, which is pretty modern, considering the age of Windows 95. Building Windows 3.11 applications was the most tricky part. It's worth noting that we won't be building true 16-bit applications. Instead, we will build simple 32-bit applications and use the Win32s add-on for Windows 3.11, which adds some 32-bit capabilities to the system. The newest compiler that I was able to use here was the free Borland C++ compiler 5.5 released in the year 2000. This one is freeware, but unfortunately not open source, however it can be still downloaded and used. I also added the MinGW 64 compiler if you want to build modern 64-bit applications. For DOS, I added 32-bit DJGPP compiler and a 16-bit OpenWatcom compiler. It is not necessary to install all of the compilers or frameworks. Each component is installed using a separate script, so if you don't need something, you can just remove it. Installation files should be available on GitHub or in other places mentioned in the description. In order to run the installation, you need to extract the installer into the directory where you want it to be installed. You also need to prepare your Windows installation files. Currently, it will only work with the English version of Windows for Workgroups 3.11 and the English CD version of Windows 95 OSR 2. Both of them are probably the most commonly used final versions. To start the process, just execute the batch script and follow the instructions. At some point, you will be prompted to copy your Windows installation files. Everything, including compilers, frameworks, emulated operating systems, will be installed automatically. Some additional files are required, like Win32s extension for Windows 3.11, guest machine drivers, or some additional compilers and frameworks, all of which will be downloaded automatically by the installer. Everything will be installed inside the directory where you run the script. There are no administrative privileges required, and the installation should be mostly portable. When the installation is done, we can run the IDE using a batch file called run CodeBlocks. During the first launch, we can see the list of installed compilers. Now we can click Create a new project and select wxWidgets project template to create a GUI application. If we want to target Windows 3.11, we need to select wxWidgets version 2.8. For Windows 90X, it will be 3.0 and 3.2 or newer for modern systems. Now I select the option that executes the application directly in Windows 3.11. And I create a directory for the new project. I prepared a frame-based GUI template with some sample elements. It will be a good starting point. For Windows 3.11, we need to use the Borland compiler. I'm creating only the release configuration. I do not select Unicode. And here we have a project with some sample elements. If I click on a button, a property page for that element will show up. If I double-click, then the code editor will appear. I can switch between GUI editor and code using tabs on the top. If I press Build and Run button, the application will compile and will be executed on the host machine. The application works, however the text is slightly blurred because this executable is not DPI aware and I'm using a high DPI screen. That will be fixed if we switch to a more modern build target later. Now let's execute this application directly in Windows 3.11. I just need to press the red debug button. And we can see that the program opened automatically in Windows 3.11. It works exactly the same as in the host machine. I can find the executable in the bin subdirectory of that project folder. After the testing is done, I can just close the application and close DOSBox. Now let's add some additional build targets. I want this application to also run in Windows 95, so I open File menu and add a build target. Select wxWidgets and choose wxWidgets 3.x, which will work nicely with both Windows 95 and modern systems. I want to execute this application in Windows 95, so I select this option. I name this build target Win95wx3a. A will mean ANSI, this is the type of build I will be using. I do not enable debugging. I disable Unicode. And finish adding the build target. Now I can select that build target and first try running it on the host machine. We can see that the application looks slightly better because it's not blurred. The older version didn't handle DPI scaling correctly. Now, if I press the red debug button, Windows 95 will automatically start in DOSBox and the application will execute. I can also find the same application in the project directory and execute it separately. If I close the application, Windows 95 will shut down automatically. Now let's try modifying the application and adding another control and a new piece of code. I can choose an option to add another button and click in the place where I want this button to appear. This sample project uses so-called sizers, so everything will scale automatically. You may look for tutorials about using sizers and wxSmith to better understand how it works. Now I can rename this button to Clear Text, and I will add another event either by opening the Events tab or just by double-clicking this button. Now the code editor did open and a new function was added. Let's say that I want to clear that big text field with that button. I click on that control to find its name. The name is displayed in the Resources tab and in the Property tab. So I copy or remember this name and start typing it in the code editor. We can see that we have working code suggestions, so I can find the name on the list. And now I want to select the clear function. That's it. Now let's build and execute the application locally. And here we have it. The button works as intended. Now I close the application and try running it in Windows 95 by pressing the debug button. And everything works here too. To save the project, I press File, Save Everything, then close it with the Close Workspace option. Now let's try building one of the included sample project. I choose to open an existing project, go to Samples directory and open the TCP test. Here we can see the code. We can open the interface in the Resources tab by clicking on wxFrame. This is a simple TCP client and server application. Let's switch to Windows 95 Target and first build and run it locally. We can open the server. We can switch to the Client tab and connect to local hosts. Sending text and simple packets of data should work fine. Now let's switch to Windows 3.11 or Win32s target and execute it in the debugger. We have the same application running in Windows 3.11 through DOSBox. Now let's find the Windows 95 build in the bin directory and launch it locally. We can open the server on our host machine and connect to it from Windows 3.11. The IP address of the host computer is 10.0.2.2 in DOSBox. Everything works as intended, and thanks to the mouse integration, we can easily switch between the host machine and Windows 3.11. Now we can close both applications and close the DOSBox. Let's open another sample project, which is a simple video player. Let's try to execute it in Windows 3.11 right away. And it should play the included video file. When the emulation is started, Windows 3.11 will get access to all the files located in the application directory. The same application will also work in Windows 95. To create DOS applications, I can choose either DJGPP template, which creates larger 32-bit executables and has more modern features, or OpenWatcom for 16-bit executables. I will start with DJGPP. I create a new project. I can also rename the build target. And here we have a Hello World code. If I press build and run, the application will execute automatically in DOSBox. I don't need to press the debug button in this case. We have working code suggestion pop-ups which help during programming. If I want to add another build target, for example 16-bit OpenWatcom, I can press File, New Build Target and select OpenWatcom. Now, after I fix some errors, because this is an older compiler, I can press the Build and Run button, and the application will again execute in DOSBox. I can even create a 64-bit console application if I click File, New Build Target, select Console, and select MinGW 64-bit compiler, or any other compiler that I would like to use, for example TDM-GCC for 32-bit Windows. And now the application executes in the command prompt of Windows 11. If you want to know more technical details, find updated versions and review the source code of the installation scripts and other utilities, please check the links in the description. If you need more information about how to use CodeBlocks and wxWidgets, you may look for some generic tutorials. Maybe I will also create some additional tutorials by myself. If you are interested in that, you can subscribe in order to stay updated.